place we call home in our valley. The Yui people represent a human connection dating back over 2,500 generations. And as we come together as a community, we pay our respects to the traditional custodians and honour their elders, past, present, and those emerging. This meeting is being streamed live, of course, in accordance with the Council's standing orders, and it's going to be published on our website. So we don't have anybody in the public gallery really, except for the Daily Mercury and our pastor today. So welcome anyway. And welcome to our online audience. Okay. Thanks, councillors. Declare the meeting open. And we're all here today, so which is very good. Considering last meeting, thank you to the Deputy Mayor for stepping in at very short notice. Our opening prayer today is Pastor Jay Wright.
Thank you.
Jay, thanks very much.
Thanks, Mayor Williamson. Well, I was seeking the Lord today on behalf of you here, and I just have this sense again that we are entering a wonderful time in our region here. And so I did really have this sense to say to each of you here today that the Lord would say that the good that is on your heart, He would desire you to step into at the moment, to begin to start to walk in that. Of course, as we work out good desires, it isn't always easy, and so I did want to pray for you as you do that. The Apostle Paul, as he writes to the citizens in the first century city of Thessalonica, he wrote down his prayer for them, and I want to pray a similar line. 2 Thessalonians 1 verse 11. He says, "We constantly pray for you that our God may make you worthy of his calling, and that by his power he may bring to fruition your every desire for goodness and your every deed prompted by faith. We pray this so that the name of our Lord Jesus may be glorified in you and you in him, according to the grace of our God and the Lord Jesus Christ." Let's pray. Loving Father, we do thank you for this wonderful region that we do live in here in Mackay. And Father, I thank you for our Mayor, Greg Williamson. I thank you for our councillors and the council staff. And Father, I just ask this morning, Lord, that by your power, you might bring to fruition every good desire that you have placed in the hearts of each person in this room, every deed prompted by faith in you, our Creator and Maker. Lord, we pray this so that the name of our Lord Jesus might be glorified in this town, this city, this region, and also that each person in this room might be glorified in him as they walk out their calling that he has called them into. And we ask all this according to the grace of our God and the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Pastor Joy. Appreciate it. Thank you. I'll be absent on council business. No apologies. Are there condolences? No condolences today. Conflicts of interest. Councillor Mann has declared 2 conflicts of interest in successive items. So we'll note that, Councillor Mann, and we'll step out on those particular items. Any other conflicts? No other conflicts? The minutes of the meeting of the 13th of April. Sorry, Councillor.
Would I have a conflict with the, as the Makai Recfishers member? I wouldn't, would I?
No.
Just as a member?
No, not at all.
Thank
No.
you.
You're not on the committee.
No.
No, good. Okay, that's fine. The minutes of the 13th of April have been circulated. Somebody would like to move that they be adopted. Councillor Mann moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Business advising is included in the agenda at agenda item. And there's no mayoral minutes today. Consideration of the committee reports and recommendations. The first one is from the Office of the Mayor and CEO about councillor attendance at the Small Business Friendly Conference. It's for approval, seeking approval for the Deputy Mayor, Councillor May and Councillor Mann to attend the 2022 Small Business Friendly Conference in Townsville on Friday the 29th of April. Questions? Somebody like to move?
Happy to move.
Councillor Bonaventura moves, seconded by Councillor Anglet. Those in favour? Any against?
I was going to speak to it.
Right, okay, well, I'll allow you to speak to that.
I think it's important. Your Worship, this conference offers local governments an opportunity to collaborate and share their knowledge, successes and learnings in relation to being a small business friendly. This will give Councillor Mann and Councillor May the opportunity to learn about and adapt to the changing face of small business, and the information gained will ensure that Mackay Regional Council remains small business friendly. We are a small business friendly council, and the Queensland Department of Small Business and Training has provided complimentary tickets for our councillors to attend. So the only cost will be travel and accommodation. Your Worship, following the conclusion of the conference, Councillor May and Councillor Mann have offered to represent Council at the opening ceremony of the North Queensland Games in Townsville. I personally appreciate that offer, as I was unable to attend due to family business, but thank you very much and I support the recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Bondman. Is there a speaker against? Any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion then. Those in favour? Any against? It's carried. Thank you. 11.1.2 is the Strategic Financial Report for the month of March. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. So as at the end of March, both income and expenditure are tracking above year-to-date budgets. A significant increase in development applications and assessment revenue is contributing to higher income, while increases in materials and services and employee benefits are driving the higher expenditure. The outcome of all of this for the period is an unfavourable variance of $80,000 against the year-to-date budget. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Questions at all for the CEO? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. Page 17 talks about the rental income and the rental income that we're not getting in this climate, but I'm curious why we're not getting that income when our rents are booming in the Makai region. Maybe I'm thinking of residential rents rather than commercial rents. I'm not really sure, so I'm just unsure about what it is.
CEO.
Thank you, Worship. I believe we do have some vacant tenancies that we are not collecting rental income for no commercial.
Commercial. Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Councillor Bondman.
Your Worship, just an executive summary from the Director, it states that 70.7 million has been spent on council projects, or 50% of the revised budget, and it notes ongoing risk to project delivery. Can the CEO please give me her thoughts on what ongoing risk could look like and the effect on project delivery as we go into the final quarter of this year's budget?
Questions, CEO?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. So ongoing risk for us is driven by economic conditions right now. So we are seeing escalating costs in materials and equipment. Contractors that are doing business for council are seeing these same things. So there is some level of risk still just with market conditions. And weather at this time of year is also a particular risk for us. So those are the two predominant factors that are creating that level of risk for us at present.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Further questions?
I'll leave it at that.
No further questions. Somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor May, seconded by Councillor Jones. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So as we've just heard from the CEO, we have a slight unfavourable variance of $80,000 at the year-to-date figure for March. Sorry. The revenue categories are tracking above budget, except for those rental income, sales contracts, and some recoverable works. Unfortunately, our operating expenses are tracking above budget as well, and particularly in that materials and employee benefits particular categories. The capital projects have to date 70.7 million has been expended, with 69.1 million of that capital expenditure and 1.5 in operational expenditure. The capital projects are something that we're monitoring quite closely in that ability to deliver them by 30 June. As always, the COVID overlay to our business has not gone away. It has eased somewhat over the last particular quarter, but it is still there, and council officers are still monitoring what may or may not happen in that space. Officers still continue to work on the data cleansing process of our asset management, and that has a possibility of impacting perhaps depreciation, and that would then flow on to our operating surplus or deficit wherever we end 30 June. And of course, the ongoing challenge of being able to deliver the capital projects through the lack of resources and the lack of materials is an ongoing challenge for our officers. I thought we would just focus on our investments for this particular report, and we can see from the cash and investment portfolio that we have $231 million invested either in QTC or other institutions, which leaves us in very good stead as a council financially to be able to call some of that money if required. The other thing, given that the rates have been issued and the discount date has now passed on the 16th of March, we're tracking pretty good as far as rates recovery is concerned. The current year, there's approximately $11 million outstanding, and you'll see in the 1, 2 and 3 years, not a vast amount of money that's outstanding there. So that really just goes to show the good measurements that are in place, the processes that are in place for council to be recovering those rates. And we have a budget that relies on about 85% of rates to fund our budget. It is imperative that we recover those in due course. And the other thing that I wanted to mention today was around our debt and the level of debt. At the end of March, currently sits at $105.8 million. And of course, in line with our budget, there are no new borrowings this year. So when you put all of that into the mixing pot, council is in a very strong financial position. And I think congratulations to the officers yet again in making sure that we keep on track of our budgetary.
Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura speaking for.
Thank you, Worship. Look, just like to follow on from the Deputy Mayor's words, just in relation to two areas, and that's in our commercial business sections of Mackay Water and Mackay Waste. Firstly, Mackay Water. It's reporting just a slightly unfavourable variance, year-to-date budget of just over 0.02 million, and operating revenue is about 0.2 above the year-to-date at this period, and all revenue streams remain closely aligned. The year-to-date budget, apart from sales contracts and recoverable works, which is reporting slightly unfavourable variance. Total operating expenses, finance cost depreciations are reporting unfavourable variance of 0.4, and the year-to-date budget period at this end. Materials and services and employee benefits are reporting year-to-date budget the period. The increase in fuel and chemicals and repairs and maintenance costs has been offset by lower than estimated consultancy charges, and they will contribute to the variances in materials and services. Waste is a little bit simpler. They're reporting 0.4 million favourable against the year-to-date budget, and their operating revenue is slightly below the year-to-date budget at period end, with fees and charges reporting about 150k below. But the total expenses are reporting favourable variances with 0.6 against the year-to-date budget, mainly because of lower than forecast consultancy services fees in materials and services, and accounts account for much of that variance. At this stage, the figures point to a good result, so I believe both those entities will end up on budget or thereabouts. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Bonaventura. Any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion then. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. The operational plan, the quarterly report for the third quarter for 2021-2022. CEO.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this report details our performance in delivering the operational plan actions as at the end of March. Continuing impacts of COVID-19 have resulted in a number of actions behind target, but as many businesses would be experiencing right now, we've also noticed a level of service disruption during this heightened period of COVID-19 cases and close contacts. Our focus during this time has been to dedicate our available resources to ensuring the continuity of our critical services. However, despite these impacts, at the close of the last quarter, I am pleased to report that the majority of actions are in fact on track, and some have even been closed out ahead of schedule. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, CEO. Questions? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have quite a number of questions, and I probably don't think that it's probably reasonable for me to ask them today, but I was wondering whether or not in relation to page 44, page 45, page 63 and page 83, which are all my questions on, and in particular to do with the HRIS system, the moral of the workforce, the Makai package, the priority on the Makai package. I wonder if there's an opportunity to have a small briefing at some time to be able to discuss all of this, that's all. Or what's the appropriate time that you'd like me to raise it?
Happy to have a briefing on the outcomes of the report. If we adopt the report today, then we're going to get a briefing on the outcomes of those particular questions that you want. Happy to put that in the briefing schedule for next Wednesday.
Thank you, much appreciated.
Other questions? Councillor Mann.
So just in regard to environmental health, and the team's been unable to meet targets due to their operating at less than 50% capacity in the team. So how are we supporting our staff through that, particularly because it would be very challenging for them?
CEO.
Thank you, Worship. Certainly we try to ensure that the team understand that we do have realistic expectations of them. We don't expect when a small team is impacted significantly with absences that the rest of the team can carry on and absorb that work. So we do try to divert other resources to assist where we can, but where that's not possible or practical, we just allow them to feel comfortable with reducing the scope of what they're able to do so that they can focus on the most needed activities rather than trying to reach the full span of work.
Okay, further questions? Councillor Jones, if you just let the CEO know of your questions so that we can actually address them in the briefing. Thank you. There's no further questions. Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Jones moves. Councillor May seconds. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. Look, the corporate plan sets out our strategic direction. The operational plan is how we achieve it all. And it is pleasing to see in the third quarter the successful appointment of 2 disaster risk reduction officers to the EM team. Council has also been on the front foot of finalising the funding agreement with the LGAQ under the Q Coast 2100 program to assist us in completing our coastal hazard adaptation strategy. After all, we are a region of 31 beaches, so it's very important. The gravel resheet program is complete for the year, and the traineeship and apprenticeship sign-ups for 2022 have also been completed, and I look forward to seeing the 11 new faces around our workplace. There's a mention there of split spaces who have completed ahead of schedule a number of supported initiatives, and I look forward to the update on the implement environmental strategy that I've been waiting some time for, and I see that it's been put back due to competing priorities. And while actions are below target on our museums collection, it's certainly taking more time to achieve. And to be honest, I wondered if we could actually meet those targets originally. We do have a lot of items to go through. We've also approved a budget of 123 million, and the forecast for the end of March was 114. And while we are slightly behind on our spend of our target, we are doing the best we can in the climate that we have. Thank you, Worship.
Thanks very much, Councillor Jones. Speaker against? Any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion then. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. 11.1.4, the March 2022 budget review. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. The entire budget was reviewed as part of the March budget review process to better reflect the estimated closing position for the current financial year, taking into account all of the things that we currently know. So the outcome of this forecast is a surplus of $3.9 million for the year. And there are a number of significant impacts that have led to this. So on the revenue side, there was an unexpected prepayment of our annual allocation of the financial assistance grant and higher than anticipated revenue from fees and charges. On the expenses side, key items to note are an adjustment to employee benefits with the determination of our certified agreement and a reduction in depreciation costs. Our forecast capital expenditure has also been updated in the March budget review, with the new forecast being in line with the budget originally adopted. Both our capital and operational budgets will continue to be closely monitored for the remainder of this year. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
No questions? Somebody would like to move then that the March budget review as tabled be adopted? Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. As you can see from the report, there's an extensive amount of work gone into presenting this budget review. And unfortunately, you know, some of the, particularly in the capital area, we're looking like we might have to defer some $14 million worth of the work that we had budgeted for in this financial year to the next financial year. Managing the operational expenses has been no easy feat. There has been lots of impacts due to a whole range of different factors. But I think the ones that stand out the most, and we spoke about them in the strategic financials, is the impact on the resources of just being able to employ people to deliver the operational side of council's works, as well as sourcing materials to be able to deliver perhaps the capital jobs and some of the maintenance and repair jobs that we undertake. So it is one of those, I suppose, unfortunate situations where things are out of our control to be able to deliver what we intended and put down on paper back at the start of the financial year. You know, a lot of things have happened in this 9 months. We still have 3 months to go. So I think it's imperative that we make sure that we make these adjustments along the way and keep monitoring and reassessing so that we can at least land 30 June, hopefully in a positive position as far as the operational side of our business is concerned, and pick up the deferred projects from the capital in next financial year.
Thank you, Councillor May. Speaker against? Any other speakers? No other speakers. The motion is that the changes identified in the March budget review be adopted and become the approved amended budget. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Move on to 11.2.1 in development services now. Now, this is an agenda report from the ordering meeting of the 13th of April, which is actually too large to deal with in business arising. So this is the result of course, the motion that at that meeting that lay on the table, the next council meeting. And as you can see in this agenda item, there's more time requested, and the officer's recommendation that as it continues to lay on the table pending receipt of further information, with the matter to be presented to council in June of 2022. Are there questions? No questions? Would somebody like to move the officer's recommendation be adopted? Councillor Hassan moves. Councillor Englert seconds. Councillor Hassan?
No, that's
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. 1.2.2, the Development Services Monthly Review for the month of March. Director.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'm pleased to present the Development Services Monthly Review Report for March. Some highlights for the month are as follows. We received the Minister's response in relation to Major Amendment 2 to the Makai Regional Planning Scheme, giving Council the go-ahead to adopt the amendment at the first meeting in April. Key features of the Major Amendment are to facilitate new types of rural tourism activities, updating the Bushfire Hazards Overlay Code, and introducing 2 new high-impact industry buffers. The AMP micro grant was released for applications at the end of March. The grant program was developed to support increased activation and placemaking in the Makai City Centre and is intended to facilitate a grassroots, community-led placemaking program where the community can become their own placemakers. The nursery team was busy in late March preparing for the first free plant giveaway for 2022, which was held on the 1st and 2nd of April. This continues to be a very popular community event, with residents collecting their free plants and also purchasing additional plants from the nursery. Minor play equipment replacement continued across a number of different parks in the region. An aged scale swing was replaced with a new double swing set at Seaview Park in Mackay. A crawl tube at Long Air Street Playground was replaced with activity panels, and works to replace sections of the ramp surface on the skate park at Brewers Park in Serena is underway. Quite a bit of stakeholder activity has been occurring at the Botanic Gardens in March, with the Friends of the Gardens holding sessions to propagate native golden everlasting daisies for Daisy Day in May, the Society for Growing Australian Plants holding propagating sessions and a herbarium session, and BirdLife Makai holding their regular monthly bird count in the gardens. The Recreational Fishing Strategy Steering Committee met on the 29th of March. The meeting went well, and the committee is tracking well in its review of the Recreational Fishing Strategy and actions. And finally, refurbishment of the cafe and kitchen area at the Sugar Shed commenced in March. The work includes upgrading the plumbing, the removal of some internal walls to open up the space, installation of additional food preparation bench tops, sinks, storage space, external facing server window, and a glass washer and air conditioning. This will allow the more efficient operation of the cafe and support the Sugar Shed in catering for events and functions. And these works are expected to be completed in April. And with that, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director. Questions for the Director? Councillor Jones.
Your Worship, I would like to ask for another briefing, if it's possible, on the desilting issue. As you know, I've asked about it many a time. Other councillors have spoke about their concerns around it as well, and I just think that we need to have a briefing and discuss it to be able to find a way forward, because it's been going on for quite a long time.
Okay, happy to do that.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I mean, the latest update we've received from the contractor is that we will receive the report, well, they won't be in a position to provide us with the report before the 22nd of April. But yeah, happy to have a briefing with council and discuss options.
Schedule it as soon as you get that report.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
That was always the plan, yeah.
Other questions? Councillor Bonaventura.
Just the Serena Sugar Shed business operations table shows all green dots, and I assume that means that everything's going to plan. And we amended the budget earlier in the year to accommodate for increased income and expenses. Now, with 3 months to go, I just want to check whether the Director feels confident we can hold our current financial position and keep the loss to just over 400,000 for that sugar shed.
Director.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So traditionally February and March are slower months for the sugar shed, and we have seen additional impacts this year due to the vaccine mandate and the heat and rain, particularly that little heat wave that we received earlier in the year. So despite this, and also the cafe's closed at the moment, as I mentioned just before, and we have also, like every area of council, had COVID impacting staffing. But despite that, it looks like we are on track, and if we compare this year and this time of year to previous years, we're still confident that we will maintain council's investment at that just over $400,000 a month.
Thank you.
Further questions? No further questions. Would somebody like to move then the adoption of the Development Services Monthly Review for March? Councillor Jones moves, Councillor Anglet seconds, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. I guess the highlight for me, I've briefly mentioned it before, on page 105, it's great to see that we have the consultant's brief. It's been issued for the quotes completing for the Coastal Hazard Adaptation Strategy, which is our CHAS. And I'm really grateful for the funding from LJQ for the Q Coast program. We do have 31 beaches, as I mentioned, in the Makai region, and we do need to start thinking about longer term, not only for protecting our foreshores, but how we do this on the community's behalf into the future. After all, we do have a lot of families in our region that just love ocean living and the lifestyle that Makai has to offer. Thank you, Worship.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Speaker against? Any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thank you. 11.2.3, the continuation of the Northern Beaches Community Hub Reference Group. And we've talked about this in a briefing, I think. So, are there questions on this one, Councillor Mann?
I did have one, and it's in terms of the membership makeup, and particularly around community members, where there's set criteria. I just wanted to make sure that we will actually apply that criteria if anybody else does, or another community member wants to go on the group. Because it's quite specific on what they must be part of, not just a single interest or anything like that.
The recommended motion is
Yes.
that the CEO be delegated to manage the employment of externals.
Yeah, and that we follow that criteria.
Yep.
Yeah.
I assume that that's a given.
Yeah.
Okay. Further questions? No further questions. Somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor May moves. Councillor Green seconds. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. As we know, we established the community reference group to make sure that we gathered the input of the Northern Beaches community and further afield as well through the agencies, the state agencies and other relevant agencies that may have an interest or want to have an interest in the Northern Beaches Community Hub. Councillor Green and Councillor Hassan and myself have been the council representatives on that committee, along with the community members who went through that expression of interest process. It has been invaluable, I think, for the development of this project to have the knowledge of the residents that live in that area, the input that they have put into the master plan has been invaluable. And then when you overlay that with the agency's input and what they bring to the table, we have a very good success story here as far as community engagement is concerned. And now that we've moved from the master plan into seeking funds for the actual development and construction of this project, it is so vitally important that we continue to keep the community as part of that process. That buy-in from the community will absolutely enhance the success of this project. So I support the motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor May. Are there speakers against? Any other speakers? I've endorsed the fact that this has been a fantastic community committee for a very, very important project. So it's great to see that this motion on the table now extends that community committee. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.2.4, the Makai Region Planning Scheme for 2017. Major amendment number 3 to prepare and give the proposed amendment to the state government to undertake a state interest review. So, Director, have you got anything more to add to this one?
Oh, Your Worship, I'm just excited to see this report come up to Council today. I think this is really great, and I think it builds on the work that was done initially through the mountain bike project as part of the local area planning project for Finch Hatton and Youngalla. And so this is translated through to some scheme amendments to support commercial and tourism activities in Youngalla and Finch Hatton. And to support the mountain bike project. So I think it's excellent that we've got to this point, and it puts us on a good path going forward.
Thank you, Director. You heard the Director say earlier on that we had the ministerial approval to actually put it through to this meeting for approval. Are there questions? No questions? Somebody like to? Yes.
Just in relation to, and this sort of goes back a little bit to the item we laid on the table previously, just in relation to treatment works for on-site sewerage, etc., etc. When we're looking at 3-storey buildings in some of these modifications, I assume we will be taking that into account, or whose responsibility is it to take those into account as far as the viability of being able to do that on-site?
Normal planning as in normal development, but Director, can you?
Yes, Your Worship. So all the standard requirements for a development will continue to apply to development in these locations. So requirements such as having to provide adequate wastewater facilities and other services. So those will continue to apply to developments in these areas. So really, in each case, it's for the developer to look at what options are available to service the development and what's feasible based on that.
Further questions? No further questions? Okay, would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Green moves, seconded by Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to take this moment to recognise the extraordinary body of work our strategic planning team has been doing over the past 2 years. And this package of major amendments to the planning scheme, as the Director said, it really is exciting. But importantly, it's necessary to ensure and maintain the enjoyability and functionality of the livelihood and the livability of our residents and the current and future businesses that will be in the township zones of Finch Hatton and Youngalla. A well-designed and heavily consulted planning scheme minimises conflicts of interest between people, businesses and the environment, and it must remain up to date and fit for purpose as times change and trends and opportunities come to the fore, and that's exactly what we're doing here. And I have to say, I've been very impressed with Council's community engagement in this process so far. The Planning 101 workshop that was held in Finch Hatton at the end of last year was absolutely a masterclass in explaining the gobbledygook of planning language to even ourselves and the residents up there. And I noticed that every single resident was completely engaged during that whole workshop, and I really believe they left fully understanding what the proposed changes to the planning scheme meant to them personally, but also what it meant to their township that they love to live in so much. So well done to the teams there. And should this proposed major amendment package be endorsed today, and once the state interest review is completed, on my previous comments there, I really have every confidence that Council's public consultation process afterwards will continue to be in-depth and valuable. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Green. I'm sure we've got our entire planning team watching, so they've just written the word gobbledygook on the board. So, is there a speaker against? Are there any other speakers? Councillor Jones speaking for.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wasn't going to miss the opportunity to be a part of this today, and I'm probably going to repeat myself a little on what Councillor Green has just said. But Council can't commence public consultation until this state interest review is completed. The amendment will facilitate the development opportunities in the Finch Hatton and Youngalla township areas to support the Pioneer Valley mountain bike trail network and nearby tourism activities in the appropriate areas. It is recommended that Council endorse this today, the proposed amendment package, and send the required material to the Minister to commence the state review and then proceed to public consultation. So for these reasons set out in the report, and knowing the residents in the Upper Valley area, the much anticipated wait for this project to be finalised and to move ahead, I am in full support and very happy to be able to support the recommendation by the officers.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Any other speakers? Councillor Engler speaking for.
Yes, thank you, Rachel. I want to thank the officers for heeding the councillors, community and the Mountain Bike Strategic Group's suggestion of fast-tracking these amendments in the interests of being on the front foot and future thinking for the proposed mountain bike track. This ensures we will not have a disconnected business community and opportunity for those businesses in these two trail towns. And again, thank the officers for getting ahead of the game, and we're ready to go.
Thank you very much, Councillor England. Any other speakers? No other speakers? Could I add my congratulations to the department? It's a long haul to get to something like this in a major amendment to a planning scheme. But I echo the councillors around the table who've put their views forward. This has been expertly done, professionally handled, and despite some of the gobbledygook, I think it's been a good transmission of what we are going to do to the public, and that's engendered the support that we've enjoyed so far. So if there's no further speakers, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.2.5 is a DA number 159 for 2021. Councillor Mann has declared a conflict and will leave the room. I think you're a conflict for the next one too, Councillor Mann, so have a cup of coffee soon. Okay, so the DA is the material change of use for a permit for a service station at 66 Broadsound Road, Serena. Broad Street. Did I say Broadsound Road? No. Broad Street, Serena. My apologies to Serena Rights. Director?
Yes, thank you, Worship. Yeah, as you said, this is an application for a material change of use for a service station on Broad Street in Serena. We did receive a number of submissions in relation to this application. And we did have a briefing with the councillors. Based on that briefing, we did some further work and undertook some further investigations as outlined in the report. And overall, based on the assessment of the application and the information that we've received through the application process and in response to our further requests for information, the application is recommended for approval.
Okay, that's a very good and detailed report in this agenda item. Thank you very much. Are there questions? No questions. Would somebody like to move then the adoption of the report? Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So as we've heard, this is a material change of use development permit for a service station located at 62, 64 and 66 Broad Street. There were 5 properly made submissions and 10 not properly made submissions, so giving us a total of 15 in all. The applicant has supported their application with the provision of the economic needs and impact assessment, environmental noise assessment, traffic impact assessment, as well as a stormwater management plan. All very good reports to support the approval of this service station. The situation on the main roads, this has been referred to the state agencies for a referral, and that has come back with an approval as well, with provisions of a turning lane into the service station being made as part of those conditions. The detailed assessment of the proposal against the relevant assessment benchmarks has been provided. So the strategic framework is a vitally important part of this assessment, and there's a number of areas there outlined in the report where the officers have made that assessment against that strategic plan process. I suppose that there was a questionable part of this. It's around the medium density residential zone code, and the purpose of the code is to provide for medium density multiple dwellings as well as community uses, small scale services, facilities, infrastructure that supports local residents. The purpose generally complies with this code, with an assessment of the performance outcomes being provided in the report there. From the officers' viewpoint, that they have met those performance outcomes. So I think all in all, the assessment has been made, the impacts that have been investigated, reported back, the concerns that have been raised by the residents too have been outlined in the report, and I think it's important to highlight those concerns that were put forward by the residents, so that the land use itself, the amenity, the need for the development, the traffic impact, the noise, the built form, operating hours, landscaping and flood impacts. And reading through the reports, the officers and the applicant has answered how they're going to mitigate those concerns, and the officers are in agreement with the proposal put forward by the applicant. So I'm prepared to move that this development be approved in line with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor May. Speaker against? Councillor Bella speaking against.
I'm speaking against this motion. I believe that it's going to create problems in an area that's already problematic in Serena. Speaking about that intersection, the intersection had a business just above there for 12 years, and I saw how badly that intersection functions. Comments with regard to TMR's assessment of it. Anyone that lives in the northern beaches can appreciate how poorly TMR often assess situations. What we've got there is a large number of children cross at that intersection. It's a link between our high school and our premier sporting fields in Serena, Brewers Park. It's in use right through the week with training and especially on weekends. This service station is going to be in use the whole time. It's going to affect people that are attending St Luke's Church, many of whom are elderly. The increased traffic and activity is going to, I think, be very detrimental. It's also going to force traffic down along Dawson Street, which will be used as a rat run. The one thing that's not taken into account on these assessments is human nature. And I believe human nature is going to create a lot of problems there. I've also am rapidly losing faith in our regulation of these conditions on a number of different things. I believe it should not be up to the residents to have to report wrongdoing. I believe if we regulate something, I'm not just talking about this, we need to have a regular assessment of whether those regulations are being complied with. And I don't believe we do it adequately. And I think it's time to start putting my foot down with regard to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bella. Speaker for. Are there any other speakers? Councillor England speaking against. For.
Thank you, Worship. Look, I agree with Councillor Bella's assessment on the intersection and impact on school children and the elderly. However, as a matter of planning grounds, there's no planning grounds to deny this application. Taking into consideration Councillor Bella's concerns, I too would like to see this council take a serious attitude towards the potential unintended consequences of this development, and that we keep a close eye on it to make sure that the impacts on the school children and the elderly, and further lobbying TMR with regards to that intersection as problems will undoubtedly arise, that we may remain on the front foot in moving forward with that. But as far as it goes, unfortunately, there's no planning grounds to deny the application.
Thanks, Councillor. Any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura, you're speaking
For the motion.
for. Okay.
Look, and similar to Councillor England, I understand where Councillor Bella's coming from, but look, it has met our strategic framework, and we've got a whole page and a half on that in the report. And I think, the fact that, and I'll just pick a couple, regional strategic vision is considered to comply. Growth management and urban consolidation, the development supports growth in the area. And it's also providing increased access to local employment, etc. Now, I could go through all of those, but I think overall, on par, this is a very good development for that area, and happy to support it.
Thanks very much, Councillor Bonaventura. Any other speakers? I'll exercise the right of reply. Okay, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Bella is voting against. The motion is carried. 10-1, thank you. Now, 11.2.6 is the closure of vehicle access for lot 70 on the reserve for environmental purposes at East Point. As you know, this has been to council a couple of times for a briefing. The state has conditioned the developer to revegetate the foreshore reserve that runs adjacent to this development site, and to do this, the use of vehicular traffic must cease on that reserve for environmental purposes. It's not a road reserve. We had a community meeting. There was broad support for the understanding that council needs to prevent vehicles to continue to access this area and damage the environment effectively. There have been 2 council briefings. We've had ongoing discussions, many discussions with the developers' representatives in relation to their commitment to the government that they have to revegetate the foreshore reserve.
Your Worship, I take that all into account, but I'd like to move a procedural motion to lay this matter on the table.
We don't have a motion yet, Councillor England.
Fair enough.
Okay. So are there questions? No questions? Would somebody like to move then that the officer's report be adopted? Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor Bella. I know that there's going to be a procedural motion, but would you like to just speak to the motion first?
Certainly, Your Worship. So I think you've given a pretty good appraisal of the intent of what's required here. Council has had a number of briefings. We had a community consultation where members of the public, and we tried to identify the users of that particular East Point area to be part of that community consultation. Unfortunately, and we've known from the briefing that we've been presented with, that there is no alternate access. This is a requirement that needs to happen. There is no alternate access. We've explored all of the options that officers did an analysis of, explored those options, and there is no feasible alternate access at this site. So therefore, council is left in no other position but to close the vehicle access to East Point.
Thank you very much, Councillor May. So, Councillor England, you wanting to move a procedural motion?
Yes, lay this on the table.
So, the procedural motion is that the motion lay on the table. That's why we have to have a motion first of all. I'll put that procedural motion. Those in favour? Those against? So I'll just run that again. Those in favour? Okay, those against? The motion is carried, laid on the table. Okay.
Do you require...
No?
Somebody going to Councillor May?
It'll be slowed on the table to the next meeting. That's yeah, come on to the next meeting. All right. Thanks, Councillor Mann. 11.3.2, the Engineering and Commercial Infrastructure Waste Services Monthly Review for March. Did I miss one?
Couple, just a couple.
Did I? It's just way ahead of myself. Transport and Drainage. Director.
Thank you, Worship. A little bit of a curveball there, wasn't quite easy.
Yeah,
Just presenting on the monthly report. So 7 safety incidents, 5 incidents were related to asset damage, 1 laceration injury. Overall, the transport and drainage civil officer asset budget area is tracking slightly ahead or over budget. So we can probably expect that will remain the same, but it may be slightly over, and given our reforecast, that's probably not quite a bad thing. Want to recognise a great customer survey results for the January-February period, so 4.25 stars. So good outcome there, given that often that's in a wet period when we have lots of issues occurring across our region. So talking about that, so obviously rain in March, I think we had around 170 mils, about 181 work orders completed during that period, and a lot of those obviously to do with potholes. So currently the road network seems to be holding up very well. Just make reference, I think we had previously spoken about major repairs that had to happen to the old stormwater pipe down at Brisbane Street. So those repairs have all been done successfully now, so that's good to see. So Haven did a great job on that. You'll see that the whip has come back a little bit, so we pulled back a number of projects that have been recognised. We've got a briefing coming back to council on the 18th of May to talk a little bit more about that. Otherwise, happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Director. Questions for the Director, Councillor Mann?
So I've got 2. So in the March report, it said there was 20 pavement sweeping customer requests. I'm just wondering if that's on top of business as usual, and what types of extra requests might we get?
Director?
Which one was that referring to, Worship?
In the activities that we've done, there was 20 pavement sweeping customer requests. Page 873.
What is it, 73?
873.
The question again?
So it says that there was 20 pavement sweeping customer requests. but I'm just wondering if that's on top of what we normally do in pavement sweeping and what type of requests we might get.
Yeah, through your work. I'll have to take that on board. So that would be normally above what we do as their scheduled work. So obviously depending on resources, I think it has been operated for a while, and often in our more outer areas, we might only be getting to them once every sort of 18 to 2 years. So often it's more about, I haven't seen the sweeper for a long time, but I'm happy to do a bit more analysis and have a look at this anything different.
Thanks, Director. Second question.
Second one is page 874, herbicide spray contractors to keep continuing to work across the region. And I just wonder if they engage with our pest management team to see what they're doing in controlling invasive pest weeds around the region.
Director.
Yes, through Canterbury. So I'll take that on note, but obviously within the project that most of them the TMR work, but I'll just make sure that there is that linkage back into pest management as occurring.
Thank you.
Councillor Bonventura, question.
Yes, Your Worship. Just following on from Councillor Mann, in relation to roadside sweeping requests, often get in areas where we still have crossovers into people's residence, and they indicate that when the truck comes down and does the sweeping, it actually has to go around the crossovers, and they believe it sweeps more under the road, under the crossovers, and creates blockages. So I wouldn't mind if the Director, while he's looking for Councillor Mann's request, if he wouldn't mind seeing what options we have in relation to areas like that, whether they do occasionally clean those out or do something like that, because especially with the amount of wet we've had.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good question, Councillor. So it is an issue for us. So it's certainly an issue, obviously, with those crossovers. So it's a little bit more complaint basis. So if the sweeper operator doesn't pick up something, they might report it. It's not something that we're actually going around actively doing. And I suppose in some respects, we look to residents to be able to do that if they have their own blockage as well. But certainly if it's reported about blockages underneath those driveway accesses, we will go out and do some extra cleaning. But it does present a problem, certainly for the sweeper.
Thank you.
Further questions? No further questions? Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Mann moves, second by Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. So the Director's already mentioned safety, minimal incidences in a high-risk area and no LTIs, which is good to see. I note that absenteeism has impacted work teams, but planned maintenance activities have continued, especially with line marking in the program works. Additional resources were allocated to address the cleaning and mowing of bus shelters. That's 118 bus shelters. It's a lot of work, actually, just in that alone. 181 work orders for pothole repairs associated with rain completed during March, and I'm sure there'll be no prizes for guessing what the top request will be for April as well, I'm sure, with all this rain. 4-star rating was achieved in regard to customer surveys, and I think that is really important to mention. So while we hear about the attitude of the person taking the call, addressing the request, all that sort of stuff, it's always important that we know the feedback to make sure that we are meeting the mark, and I congratulate the team on those positive survey results. Asset management program has had ongoing disruption due to a number of existing vacancies, and I understand that because of impacts of COVID and all that sort of thing. But I'm just wondering too if our recruitment process maybe needs to be refined if we're taking a while to fill vacancies, because it's obviously putting pressure on the rest of the team. And we previously said that getting our asset management process right is vital. And I really do appreciate all the work that's being done in that area, particularly around our depreciation liability and getting better at forecasting that.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Mann. Speaker against. Any other speakers? Councillor Jones speaking for.
Thank you, Worship. I too agree with Councillor Mann about the increase in pothole repairs, 181, and obviously very timely right now because we've got a lot of rain around. But I also wanted to add on there about our open drains as well. And the mowing maintenance that's been a priority. It's also important to remember that if our drains are working well, then that also assists in being able to get the flow of water away from people's property. So I appreciate that the mowing maintenance has been a priority, and a good report. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Jones. Are there any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Now, 11.3.2, which is the waste services monthly review. Director.
Again, recognise no LTIs during the period. There were 2 incidents involving contractors. Our not-for-profit levies that we give away, where we actually provide free access to dump, is tracking quite well. So commitment to the team, because it has been an issue in previous years. We seem to have got that down through a really good process and working with all the not-for-profits there. Tonnages for home pockets have gone up for the month, so we'll see if that's a continuing trend. And green waste again is up, but not unexpected. Dump vouchers for the period was at 25.8, so that's a little bit lower than we've seen. So it's probably the lowest redemption rate we've seen for that March sort of period since 2016. So only down by a couple of percent, but slightly lower. About 455,000 expended to date in relation to dump vouchers. The budget's actually tracking quite well, so that's good to see. Make reference that we recently did a trial for a slab down at Kamala for the transfer station for oil bay, where we used a ply rock in there, so that was a really good example, the first time that's being used in Queensland. So certainly something we're looking to explore more opportunities to be able to use that in future project works, and been liaising with capital about opportunities going forward. Other than that, happy to take any questions.
Questions? No questions. Okay. Somebody like to move? Councillor Hassan moves, seconded by Councillor Jones. Councillor Hassan.
Generally, when I speak to the waste services reports, I talk about the outstanding services provided by our staff and contractors in this department. And while that level of service in the past month has been exceptional as always, this month I thought I'd like to highlight a few other of the innovative and interesting things from the Director's report. As the Director just referred to, on the 10th of March at the Kamala Rural Transfer Station, we had Queensland's first use of recycled plastic in concrete, which attracted media coverage for Makai Regional Council both locally and across the nation. So to be recognised on a national level for such an innovative project just really is a really good demonstration of how regional areas are leading the way in resource recovery. Our waste services team partnered with the Department of Environment and Science to provide for Love Food, Hate Waste events, both at the Showgrounds Markets and the Mackay Farmers Market. These events educate residents on ways that they can divert food waste from landfill and also utilise food waste as a resource. So we had approximately 180 residents attended these events across the month, and would like to pass on thanks to Veggies Unlimited, who provided produce for the events, and also our staff who gave up their time outside of their normal working hours to attend. Waste Services also held a composting and worm farm workshop at Melba House at Marion with 30 residents attending. These events are usually booked out well in advance. They're very, very popular. People are very interested in worm farming. And again, diverts that food waste from landfill. So there is another workshop coming up on the 7th of May at the Regional Botanic Gardens. And I'd strongly recommend anyone who wants to attend to get in quick, because they book out very quickly. Finally, we had a LAWMAC meeting again last week in Townsville. There's some fantastic, very innovative work going on in the resource recovery sector. We saw presentations on solar panel recycling, on tyre recycling, on mattress recycling. So there's a lot of things happening in that space. But there's been discussions commenced with a group of representatives from 7 of our regional councils across Queensland, along with the Local Government Association of Queensland, Department of Environment and Science, and Queensland Treasury Corporation, related to the recent government announcement about the regional waste management resource recovery requirements. So these plans are going to provide a blueprint to enable regions such as ours to access funding that's available through the Recycling and Jobs Fund, to also provide a sustainable investment pathway that will help the delivery and leverage co-funding opportunities, and also help contribute to each area's goals and targets of that waste management and resource recovery strategy. So while the initial discussions were around the procurement and process required for the delivery, but ultimately these plans are going to be a way forward for regional councils to collaborate and investigate more efficient ways for them to deal with their waste management and resource recovery outcomes. So the timeline for delivery of the regional waste plans is anticipated to be March next year, and I look forward to the implementation.
Thanks. Councillor Hassan, speaker against. Any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura, speaker for.
Yes, Your Worship. Just one, I might have to have a crack at the Director. I do agree that the dump vouchers were down as 25.8 as opposed to 26.1, but unless the numbers are wrong in the report, it's only 180 vouchers is the difference. That's what the numbers say in the report, so it's not very many at all. And I did my best in the last week before they ran out and used my 3, so that helped. Just the only other thing I wanted to say, Your Worship, was at the last meeting, I think I spoke about the fact that we weren't getting rid of our recycled materials. I note that has come up quite substantially in this report, so that's good to see.
Thanks, Councillor Bonadura. Any other speakers? Other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. And ECI for water.
Thank you, Worship. Again, starting with safety, so 5 incidents, 3 were asset damage, 1 medical treatment with a cut finger, but good to see that still no LTIs in that area for the last 2 years, so great work there. Again, the budget tracking slightly over, it's probably Water Network who are seeing some higher costs coming through from some of that's around pump station management and odour control, something we continue to obviously have a close look at. The plumbing applications has jumped up, so interesting to see that. So that's the highest number of applications we've had in 12 months. So we'll see if that trend continues. Customer survey results are wonderful, 4.75. I think that might be a record. So given the issues around that period of time, again with rainfall and the number of staff, that's certainly a fantastic recognition for everyone involved in that Water Networks team. And just a quick shout out, we've got water accounts about to go out in early May. So just a reminder that if you're on my H2A, you can go back to your usage after the last 6 months and to recognise that period goes back to September last year. So when you're looking at your accounts and you look at the last month that's been really, really wet, you need to go back further to understand what your billing usage should have been across that period of 6 months. Thank you, Your Worship.
You're foretelling the questions that we obviously will get when the water bills go out. Mackay, questions for the Director around the water. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. I actually was just going to ask a question around the information requests being so high with the plumbing applications, but you've stated that you're going to keep an eye on those, and so I look forward to the feedback on that if it continues. That's all.
Okay. Further questions? Councillor Seymour.
Yeah, I just want to ask a couple of questions here. When a property is sold, does it come off the My HDO register?
When a property is sold,
does it come off the register?
Transfer. Yeah, good question. Can you answer that?
Yeah, through your worship, no, unless if it's sold, then the new owner would then be required to sign up to be able to get that access. So we obviously have been working with real estate agents when there's a rental change in ownership, that still stays back with the real estate agent, but if there's actually a change in ownership, it would need to be a new sign up unless you're already signed up and own that property. But I will check that to make sure if there is there might be a mechanism for us to try and tap into that at the moment to make sure that people are getting that information.
And do you have another
one? Yeah, I had the other one answered itself, but there's also mentions there's 76 new registrations, but like I said, there's never no mention of deregistrations, so basically answers itself.
All right. Further questions? No further questions. Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Hassan moves. Councillor Green seconds. Councillor Hassan.
Thank you, Worship. I think I've picked out the same items out of the report as the Director, so I'm probably going to be echoing his sentiments. So, like he said, the water services team consistently perform well in the area of safety, and 2 years without an LTI, I think, is an absolutely fantastic result for such a big team. So while they had no lost time injuries for the month, and the only 5 major incidents that were reported, while they were varied in nature, 3 of them were resulted in minor asset damage, 1 requiring medical treatment, and 1 of those involved a contractor. So they do serve as a reminder to staff and contractors to be vigilant where safety is concerned, but this team seemed to be all over it. Again, as the Director alluded to, March saw an increase of 15% on the previous month for their plumbing applications, with 86 applications submitted. Their approval time of just 1 day of those applications is absolutely fantastic and well within their 5-day target. The plumbing applications obviously are required for all new plumbing installations as well as any modifications to existing plumbing, so they're always a great indicator of the ongoing building activity that's going on within our region. There were also 10 new trade waste approvals provided to businesses after completion of their trade waste requirements. 8 of these were for new businesses and 2 were around change of ownership. And finally, again, just congratulating the team on their fantastic results in their customer service delivery. The effect on the teams due to COVID and, labour hire and everything else has been outstanding. But to have fulfilled 390 work requests with the exceptional results that they've got from their customer survey results is really outstanding. So pass on congratulations to the team.
Thanks, Councillor Hassan. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Townsend speaking for.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just like to reiterate our director in regards to My H2O. We speak about My H2O most months when we're talking to the water report. I'd just like to encourage our ratepayers to sign up for My H2O. It will help our residents to not only track their water usage, but it has the potential to save water and money. Water leaks can have an expensive impact on your water bill, and with 2023 leaks reported for residential properties during this period, it is a timely manner to remind our ratepayers register online. It's very simple, it's very effective, and there won't be any unpleasant surprises hopefully when you get your next water account. You will receive SMS alerts or emails notifying you of a water leakage and high consumption within days of occurring. It was pleasing to see also that there are 76 new registrations for the month of March, bringing the total of My H2O registrations to just over 16,500 property owners, tenants and real estate agents. So I'd just like to finish by saying if you're not already signed up residents, I'd encourage you to go online today and register. It's simple and it's free.
Thanks, Councillor Townsend. Any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Org Services monthly review for March. Director.
Good morning, Your Worship. Safety continues to be a focus of the department. Some highlights for the month include customer service team continue to receive outstanding customer satisfaction results, with 96% of completed surveys indicating that our external customers were satisfied with the service that was provided. This was despite staffing challenges due to unplanned absences occurring during the month. With the corporate plan now complete and adopted by Council, work continues on operationalising the plan with the development of the organisational strategy, department and program plans. This will lead to the development of the operational plan 22-23 for adoption by Council in June. A full upgrade to Council's main security system occurred during the month. Due to the diligence of the property services team, minimal disruptions to access occurred to Council programs and contractors. The fleet team, despite the challenges with supply chains, took delivery of several new shiny pieces of plant during the month. A combined effort from the shared services, people and culture and community lifestyle teams saw MRC participate in a virtual Harmony Day event on 22nd of March. The event was hugely successful and a positive display of Australian multiculturalism. Our Paget Depot staff also came together to enjoy a multicultural flavoured feast. Preparations for the 22-23 budget continue, with several briefings being held at Council. The March 22 budget review and the 22-23 fees and charges being considered by Council today are all pieces in the puzzle which will inform the 22-23 budget and long-term financial forecast. The Information Services team continues to drive the organisation to improve its focus on cyber security. Up-to-date industry alignment ensures our systems are robust, while sustainable cultural and behavioural changes ensure people's actions don't compromise Council systems. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Director, questions for the Director, Councillor Mann.
We've got two. Electronic page 932, 571 more emails received in the same time last year. So do we have more staff allocated to dealing with those? And have we noticed a decline in the amount of paper mail received from Australia Post?
Director.
Yes, so we're definitely receiving a decline in paper mail. Obviously, we're redirecting resources to deal with those emails. It seems to be the preferred method of contacting Council, so we're putting staff on the emails and monitoring that.
Second question, Councillor.
Yes, so in terms of exit surveys that are offered when someone leaves, and if there's comments around culture and values, who sees those comments and are they escalated to the CEO just for nudge, given that there may not be too many of those anyway?
Director.
Yes, so any result from exit surveys are seen by the People and Culture Manager, and any trends or comments that need to be addressed are sent to the relevant person.
Further questions? Councillor May.
Just in relation to employee services and the, I note that there's 133 vacancies this month, 137 in the previous month. Has council got any thoughts, or what's the strategy around, I suppose, trying to fill those positions? And I'd be interested to hear what the strategy is. Yeah.
Director, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, so I don't have it just now, but we are working on it. We realise it's a challenge for not just us, for the country in general. So we are looking at strategies and what we can do in that space. We've already got some ideas. We just need to put those into a plan and to action those.
See you.
Yeah, it is an ongoing challenge. We've got some really tricky roles to fill in the current market that we have. Technical roles that require a lot of higher education are particularly difficult at the moment. There's a lot of competition for people in the market. So as Kylie said, we're doing our best to come up with some strategies and plans and try and think about our recruitment strategies a little differently so that we can get some outcomes for our teams, because we acknowledge it puts everyone under great pressure.
Thank you.
Councillor Langlet.
I imagine part of the problem is that we're not as competitive as other agencies, given we're a government and we're restricted to certain things. Is part of that, looking at that, looking at how we can be more competitive in the market.
See you.
Thank you, Worship. It is challenging. We do have an award structure that we have to work within, and a certified agreement as well that we are bound by. So we are not able to potentially offer the same as what other larger companies may have that are not bound by those same rules. So we try and consider what the full employment package is that we're able to offer. We do have other mechanisms that are not available to other private enterprise as well that are at our disposal. So we try and consider things more general.
Yeah, sure.
Further questions? No further questions? Somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Mann moves, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Worship. Just wanted to reiterate the Director's comments on lost time, no LTIs and just a minimal number of incidents. As always, I'm sure all the factors have been assessed and corrective actions will be implemented where possible. It was good to see 96% of monthly action plans carried out, because I believe that is important to focus on that as well. I'd like to offer congratulations to the shared services team on an outstanding result regarding customer satisfaction. 96% of the completed surveys indicating our external customers were satisfied with the service provided to them. So that's a pretty good result, really. I know I say it a lot, but I genuinely mean it. This is the front line of council, as are a number of positions in council at the front line. And the officers would deal with a number of different and difficult phone calls every day. And so, and their days would not be easy. So it's just an appreciation for all our frontline staff, regardless of what area they work in, and thank you for what they do for us. I'd just like to mention IT support, because they don't often get a mention. Again, delivering exceptional service to internal customers with all KPIs exceeded. Again, not an easy job. They have a wealth of knowledge. They're trying to navigate lots and lots of different challenges all the time, and their ability to resolve so many issues is to be commended. Procurement services had a busy month with a number of purchase orders delivered and 3,687 invoices processed. When you put that into perspective, that not all of those invoices would just be a single line, that's a lot of data entry and a lot of things to get right. So they do an amazing job for us as well. And on procurement, I don't believe we should ever underestimate the value to the region of the local procurement spend either, with over $10 million or 61% in March. So that's pretty significant as well. And property services, don't often get a mention either. So they had a very busy month with over 250 work orders action, a full upgrade to the council's main security system server, and over 50 lease matters dealt with. And they're all quite complex as well, and not just something you can get off your desk in 5 minutes. And last but certainly not least, I wanted to recognise financial services team for the enormous amount of work they're delivering at the moment, including the March budget review, comprehensive revaluations of water and sewage business, external audit activities, and of course preparation for the budget to be adopted in June, which is just massive. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Mann. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Jones speaking for.
It was just really just to echo Councillor Mann's sentiments. The one that stood out for me is the fact that our frontline people are our customer service team, and their results being outstanding, as she said. And I just think it's great that the way that they treat our customers, and our customers are happy with, it shows through the surveys that are done. So, yeah.
So thank you. Any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. The interim management report. For Council's information, the 2022 interim management report of Mayor, completed by Council's external auditors. Pretty well self-explanatory. It comes to my office every year. Any questions around it at all? No questions? Would somebody like to move then that this report be received for the financial year ended 30th of June? Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. As you've said, it's an annual process that we go through. You look at the report and we have green lights in all of the categories, which is a great place to be. So, yeah, congratulations to the staff in ensuring that we're meeting our requirements.
Thank you very much. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Okay, I'll put the motion in. Before I do put the motion, once again, it's only a couple of pages in this report, but it's always good to get an external audit report that has green lights and everything. So it's a great tribute to our team. So congratulations. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Fees and charges at 11.4.3, the 2022-2023 budget. The fees and charges. Once again, it's been presented. We've talked about this at a briefing. It's quite a lengthy document. Are there any questions? No questions? Would somebody like to move then? We adopt the fees and charges for 2022-2023. Councillor Green moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Councillor Green.
Thank you very much. Yeah, look, reading through it's all very explanatory, but I'd like to highlight where I did have some questions to the finance team, and I'm very satisfied with the responses, and I'd like to pass those on. And they were around increases there with our swim centres in Memorial Swim Centre and the Morani Caravan Park and Swimming School. But I've been assured that the increases observed in these fees and charges are purely a result of rounding the increase to the nearest 10 cents. And the fee for access spectator has increased from $2 to $2.10 at the Memorial Swim Centre. So it looks like it's substantial, but in reality it really isn't. And the fee for access for group and schools at Memorial Swim Centre has increased only from $2.55 to $2.65. So my concern was that we need to keep our swim centres affordable, but I'm very assured that we are in that space still. Thank you.
Speaker against? Any other speakers? Put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion is carried unanimously. The fees and charges have been adopted for 2022-2023 budget. All right. Next late business. Missed a page out of line, but anyway. Okay, so that's right. We don't have any tenders. There's no petitions. There's no notified motions. There's no public to participate today. Late business. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Worship. I have a couple of items. So, as the chair of the Regional Arts Development Fund, I had the privilege on Easter Monday to go and watch a glass firing kiln being built at Marion at Azure Glass. And the person that does this came up from Canberra, so drove what he said was he wasn't looking forward to the return trip because it was quite a number of days to get here, but bought two different kilns with him which were easily buildable in one day. And there was other people invited to come along to see if that's what they wanted to do, to build their own kiln to have at home. I believe that Grace from Azure Glass may have been purchasing one, but it certainly was a whole process to watch it actually being built from the ground up, including cutting the bricks and the wiring and all that sort of stuff. So it was a really good day. Also, again, another RADA-funded project was the Valley Theatrical Players' 50th reunion, and I attended a meeting at the Playhouse on Saturday, just another planning meeting before the event takes place on May the 7th. It is just for past and present players. And as my mother was in the first ever cast, I've been asked to represent her because she's not able to get here. So it was really good to actually see some people, watch them doing some rehearsing, because they've got a whole program of events planned for the day. So it was really lovely actually, and I think I'll go back on Monday and help them with the working bee in preparation for the event next Saturday. And I just wanted to mention the Alpha Row ESA handover dinner. My fellow councillors, Councillor Bonaventura and Councillor Jones, who expertly emceed the event. Again, it was a lovely night. That's my 7th one I've been to. I just am in awe all the time of those ladies and what the amount of money they raise in the community and distribute back to the community on they try and do it on such a fair basis with the knowledge of those groups that they feel could be best supported. And I appreciated the opportunity to attend on behalf of Council, but also on behalf of the Management Committee of Youth Information Referral Service, as I've taken on being a committee member there, and they were recipients. So it was another fantastic night. Councillor Jones' jokes were definitely better than Councillor Bonaventura's the year before. He told dad jokes, but at least Councillor Jones got a few laughs. So it was a really nice evening.
Thanks very much, Councillor Mann. Any further late business, Councillor Bella?
It's just a quick comment. Obviously, the Anzac Day was well attended. In speaking to actually being in Serena with the rain, and it held off for the actual event, but running across the park and in amongst the slop was a power lead, and then in speaking to a couple of our staff members, they sort of mentioned that it'd be a lot handier just to have power access close to the cenotaph. Now, I'm not sure if it's only Serena or what, but I think it's something we should really have a look at. It would make things an awful lot easier for everyone involved, I must say, and to be honest, it just make it a whole lot safer. You know, one would hope that we don't have as much slop as we had the other day again, but by the same token, you know, for a relatively small outlay, it could make it so much better.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Bella. The CEO's taken a note. Further late business, Councillor Jones.
Thanks, Your Worship. I was just going to mention that yesterday all the lady councillors had an invitation to the Older Women's Network, and it was to actually speak with the ladies there and let them know why it is that all of us ladies decided to run for council. So it was great to have all my fellow councillors there, and I'm sure that the ladies in ESA then, Older Women's Network are much more the wiser now to understand a little bit about what our roles are involved within council. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Councillor Engler.
Thank you, Worship. Several weeks ago, Councillor Hassan and I attended the Makai Royal Production Society 40th anniversary dinner in your stead, as you're unavailable. This organisation was formed in 1982. It actually existed since 1972 in a different form. Rob Denman, current president, hosted us, and you know, this organisation has had significant impact in their industry and in our economy for the last 40 years. They've given us their yearbook, which I'll supply to yourself, Mayor, it's a great little record of history, what they've been up to. And as dad jokes were mentioned in one of the previous speakers, I'll mention that I told a very popular dad joke at this event. What do you call an aristocratic cow? Sirloin. Thank you.
Well, let's not start on that. Thank you very much. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just really wanted to mention Anzac Day as well. There's 25 services across our Mackay Regional Council area. Councillors were represented at the majority of those, and the CEO or directors filled in the positions that we were unable to attend to. But the crowds were huge. It was exceptional. The services that I attended, I would go so far as to say they were record crowds in attendance. But I wanted to really draw out the work that our officers do in the preparation for those parades and services. It is an enormous amount of work, and on Anzac Day it was in some places under horrendous conditions, and our boys and girls just delivered and made sure that everything ran smoothly. So a big congratulations to our team of workers that helped with that event.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you to councillors for your contribution. I know a lot of you did 5 or 6 parades on Anzac Day, which is fantastic. Councillor Bonaventura.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Look, I'd just like to mention the North Queensland Games that's on this weekend, and wish all our residents that are travelling up to compete in those best of luck, and may it be a very fruitful weekend for them, as well as, again, thanking my fellow councillors, and I think Councillor Townsend's also going to attend the opening ceremony up there, so it'll be good to have good councillor representation up there at that event to cheer on our competitors, so all the best to all those competing.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Bonaventura. Councillor Green, late business?
It's busy late business too, isn't it? Just following on from Councillor Bella's question about the services at our cenotaphs, I would like, if we are looking into our cenotaphs and the accessibility of them as well, because I did notice at Northern Beaches on the weekend, very, very busy despite the inclement weather, but it's an undulating surface, and watching our veterans precariously at times trying to find their place in front of the cenotaph is, it's hard to watch. And even at Seaforth, where there is a flat ground, when there's tufts of grass, when your ambulation difficulties mean that you're shuffling, even those can, create a hazard. So if we can look at potentially how can we make our cenotaphs more accessible for our diggers would be great. And last night I had the absolute pleasure of going to a second Northern Beaches community meeting. Now this was following on from an initial meeting that was convened by Mackay resident Doug Peterson, and because he's always been involved with the community and really felt that there were some needs out there and the need for a voice to be established. And I've been really pleased to work with Doug since that initial meeting to create the second, more broadly advertised community meeting, and that was held last night at the Northern Beaches Bowls Club. We had 30 people come, which we thought was a good result despite the weather, and I'm really pleased to have been invited, even though it was very clear it was a community-led event. It was not a council event, but I was very pleased to be invited along with council staff, including the Director of Development Services, to speak about the two big hot topics out there, one being the road and traffic, and the second being the maintenance of our parks and reserves and environment out there at the moment. And we were joined by Alyssa Crooks, who's the Community Development and Youth Officer for the Northern Beaches. And that was the priority focus of the meeting was, is there interest in the Northern Beaches to bring together a community voice, even a progress association? I thought it was very successful. We had Antoinette Dutois, who's from Greater Whitsunday Community. She's put her hand up to continue to facilitate these meetings. She has immense expertise in bringing together community groups. And as Doug will be now taking a back seat, and my thanks to Doug for all the years of work that he's really put into the community, but he's now focusing on his next book, his next publication. So he has no desire to continue to step forward into this space, but Antoinette's going to do a great job, I think. The outcome of last night was, let's just continue to have these get-togethers every 3 months, have council come along and inform us about what's going on in that part of the community. And I wouldn't be surprised if after a while, as community comes together, we may even see those further steps into a progress association. So a great result for the Northern Beaches. And I'd like to acknowledge that Councillor Jones and Councillor Bonaventura and the Mayor of Whitsunday, Andrew Wilcox, who's our LNP candidate for Dawson, were also in attendance last night.
Thanks very much, Councillor Green. Any further late business? No further late business? Right. Councillors, we have a number of confidential reports to consider. 5 of them, in fact, including the commercial fees and charges. So we probably should move into a closed session of council to consider those. Councillor Jones moves, seconded by Councillor Bonaventura.